I'm both African American and Native American. From my grandfather's side, my grandfather was Native American, Mattapanai, the sub-tribe of the Powhatan. There's another one called Pamunkey. They're like the cousin tribe. It basically was two Powhatan kings, brothers or half-brothers. They were like, they competed against the other half-brother who they betrayed to the colonials. And that's how they got Virginia. That's how the first colony survived. It's two Native Americans, brothers, betrayed for some pots and pans. Hi there. Hey, okay, let me say hi back to you. Let me see if I can do a comment. Hi. Yes. Good, yeah, hi there. Good to see you, Lily. And, oh yes, Unc Ra-Pata, Sanu, what's up? Good to see you. Okay, Djehuti merci. I don't know a whole lot of French. I just know enough to fake the funk. You know what I'm saying? Not necessarily fake the funk. I channel French. I don't really speak it, you know? Okay, so basically, so I might mess up a little bit, you know? Sometimes I get it perfect, you know? But then sometimes I kind of stray. Depends on how I'm focused. So basically, I'm going to transition off of this painting, and then I'm going to start that painting. Basically, the war between those two guys. Also, another thing I'm going to start doing with these, because I fell yesterday. So not only am I going to paint, but I'm going to drop down and do some push-ups. That's why I got this thing around my neck, and some sit-ups and some deep knee bends. Yeah, I'm doing stupid stuff in my lives, man. Not only my lives like really long, but I'm just doing whatever I daggone feel like. That's what I'm doing. And I don't know, it's not according to anybody's social media standards. It's not professional. It's not, well, I mean, social media is new. I mean, why does it have to be professional? Why can't it be more organic? You know, I'm an organically evolving being, you know? So, therefore, I must stay true to that, you know? So yeah, I'm gonna try to get myself, you know, that way I can kill two birds with one stone. I can get in shape a little bit at the same time while I'm painting. Because sometimes I'm just burnt out after the time I finish painting. I don't want to do nothing, you know? Okay, so I got my palette already made. I got my brushes already taken out that I want to use for today. And I'm gonna be using small brush, zeros and ones again. So I'm at the zeros and ones section of this painting. And I will have a blank painting probably next Wednesday. This size, I will have it here. I probably would move this one over here. Still keep this one over here. And then you know what I do is when I'm not painting, I'm bouncing around between all of the paintings. Even on the Tupac painting and the Nipsey painting, I'm bouncing on those. And good to see people from Europe, Belgium, by way of, where'd you say you're from? Cameroon. See, so I have the African queens in here from the motherland. 100% uncut Africans, man. See, I'm a cut African, you know, I'm cut. But you uncut, shorty, so that's good. That's real good. So, but I'm also a Native American dude, so that's the part that I'm proud of, those two parts, the African and Native American. I'm proud of really everything, but those are the ones that I feel like I got to take up for those. Those are the ones I need to make sure that is put to the fore, you know, because everything else is already there. So I'm kind of like an underdog person, you know. Okay, so I have all my paints on my palette already. I think I have everything ready to go. I think I just need to put a little bit more cadmium red on my palette and maybe a little bit of burnt sienna. Then I'll be ready to dive in. Just gonna put just like the size of a pea. And I might put a little bit of alizarin on there as well. Just a little bit. No, that's yellow ochre. I don't want that. And a little bit of burnt sienna, because the burnt sienna that I have from yesterday, it's a little bit dried out. Okay, and just a little bit of burnt sienna. Not gonna need a whole lot of these because, like I said, this is my zeros and ones brushes. A little bit of Daxonon purple. I always like to get a little squig of clean black, you know? And I might do a small painting too for you guys. Just do like a portrait. If anybody wants a portrait done, DM me. I'll do your portrait live right here. And I'll give you a really, really good price. Extremely affordable if you want your portrait done. And I will do it on a canvas like, I'll show you this size. Like this. This size. You can see I already have something right there that I'm going to start out. I'll do it that size for you. If you want something like that, that'll be a great thing because I want to kind of do some people, you know. I could do celebrities, you know. Celebrities get their pictures done all the time, but I just like to do regular people also, you know. So, and then also if you just want to have the painting, you know, have like a little portrait oil painting as opposed to photography. I could even do you as like, put your arrayas on your head, you know. I can give you a scepter. I can give some African motifs, you know. Lily, some African Mambo is here. How you doing, Mambo? He's painting again. Yeah, I'm doing my thing. Happy to see your nice picture and your black answer. That's right. Daggone right about that. I'm making these people, oh, let's look at this. You know, I mean, I'm glad you pointed that out, Lily. Black people. King and queen. The god is black. And the living gods are black people from Africa. This brother right here, his dad is African. And his mom is African American. Just like the person behind me. His dad is African, Barack Obama. And his mom is American. You know? And so, yeah, I got African people in there. In art, oil paint, large format. So, yes, I represent my culture and my art. Yes, and I'm painting again, Mabo. Nothing can stop me. Not even if I fall and land on a rock. Like I did yesterday, you know. I sat down yesterday and I was in, I don't know if you guys seen it. I mean, you could go back and look at the video if you want. It's kind of embarrassing, so maybe you shouldn't. But my whole leg went to sleep. And it wasn't until I was halfway up till I realized, God dog, my whole leg is gone, you know. And I didn't have a leg. You ever heard a person say you didn't have a leg to stand on? Literally, I didn't. And I tried to be cool like I wasn't going to fall because I had the stick in my hand. So I tried to pick it up and say, okay, maybe I get the circulation for a split second. Then I fell down, you know, like a sack of bricks, you know. It is what it is, you know. You do what you do. But I'm dedicated to my work. So, yes, these will be in galleries around the United States. Perhaps even Lily. Mambo. I want to put some stuff in the galleries in Zimbabwe and in Cameroon. Help me out. Put it in Belgium too. But if the Belgian people ain't down right, then let's go to Africa, man. Skip that. You know, I want this in art galleries in Africa. I want my work there too. Heck yeah. Okay, so anyway, so I'm back. And Mambo, you know what I'm going to do? Because I saw how stupid I looked yesterday. And I can't be doing stuff like that. So, Mambo, I'm going to be doing some serious, I'm going to be getting down with my stuff, you know? Like, for example, I'm going to just do it right now. I'm going to do it right now. Look. Do some push-ups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, like that. See, so I can do push-ups. I can do 100 if I needed to, but I'll be doing that while I'm painting. That's the new thing I'm starting. Do the sit-ups too, the deep knee bends. I don't know, that's gonna be wild. Sandy Joy, you watching? How you doing? How you doing? Goddess is here. We have gods and goddesses in the room. Okay, so we are saying, yeah, we are. Come on, we don't even have to ask that question. There is no question. See all this antenna I got up here. See, you can't get that unless it's Africa, you know? I hate to say, I don't care what nobody says. You know, I be here the Africans was in North America. I don't know. I think they in Africa, though. I know that much. So there you go. Yeah, we all the same thing. I got the whole rainbow in my family. The whole entire rainbow. Literally. And I'm very happy of that. You know, the whole continent of Africa, when I do my DNA test, the whole continent of Africa lights up. Dots all over the place. It was real funny. I said, well, geez, man, My people must have been here a long time. And I know that they were, because it's almost every region, every tribe, every group I have an ancestor from Africa. Even Cameroon area, even, I would even say Zimbabwe, Mabo. I would say that too. I mean, because it was everywhere, because of the Bantu, those Bantu people, I have like a point some percent Bantu. They're everywhere. You find that almost all over Africa, you know? So, got all that stuff in me, you know? However, I do have Native American in me. I have to say it, I got some, I guess it's Scandinavian, because it's Scottish, because I do know that one of my ancestors, the Scottish didn't like the English, by the way. My ancestors came over in 1600s, both the whites and the Africans. The Africans came over, the whites, I think, came over after the Africans. The Africans came here in 1619 from the original Africans, that's my family, was from the Angola area. And they came here in 1619 in Jamestown. And they tried to enslave them. And they joined the Native Americans and start making my families. Because, you know, it wasn't that many people on the ship. And some of the people married the other Africans, I guess, that was on the ship. And some of the people, because there weren't any other Africans here. And some of them intermarried with the Native Americans. But the thing about it, the Scottish joined them. There's a lot of people, the Scottish and the French, and the English wasn't getting along. They joined the Native Americans and the Africans against the colonials. Until this painting I'm going to do next, called the Tsenikamoko War. What they don't tell you is that there was white Scottish people as well as African people with the Native Americans on the side of the Powhatans, or the Tsenikamokos, against Captain John Smith. There was no way the person they called Pocahontas was in love with Captain John Smith. He raped her. They held her hostage. He raped her. All those white guys in that fort raped her. John Rolfe was the one that claimed her as his basically part of his harem. She didn't have any choice. He basically said, okay, well, basically you're my slave. You're the only woman here. There was no women in the original Jamestown. There was no women. So they took native women. And so if you go to the east coast of Virginia, you'll find a lot of whites mixed with natives, blacks mixed with natives, and natives, and various blends in the middle. So that's East Coast Virginia. Those are some of the very first people in this country. So what I'm going to do is I have back here and that's basically where my family comes out of, those people. And since those people were the ones that lost, you know, in the battle for America, I mean, what was Britain at the time, there was no America. It was England against us. And I have pictures, even in my albums, where Queen Elizabeth, when she comes to Virginia, she goes to see the Wessawarks, or the chief. She goes to see him. And the reason she does that is because they gave her this state of Virginia. They gave her the country. They gave the English an inroad into the country, and they traded for some silver and some little ingots and trinkets, pots and pans and stuff like that. That's literally what happened. So, and she knows. They write this stuff down somewhere in their analog. So when she goes to Virginia, she always goes to see the Mattapanai, our chief. And I was shocked. You know, I'm kind of upset about that, because I was always proud, because today we're proud, but the reality is back in the day, some of my ancestors, my particular ancestors, were traders. And then the Trail of Tears started, some of them. But then there was another group of them, and it might not have been my ancestors. It might have been just the ruling family, the more controlling family, betrayed Apep Kano, who was really supposed to be the king after Ohan Sinoka. There was no such a thing as Chief Powhatan. It just wasn't. His name was Ohan Sinoka. That was actually his name. So, but we made up new names for everybody. You know, Pocahontas is Pocahontas. Her name was Matoaka. So I'm going to paint a painting about them to set the history straight. And that's what I like to do. That's why I painted this painting, to set the history straight. I'm tired of people rewriting other people's history, man. Taking their stuff, and then after taking their stuff, have the audacity to go in and actually write a false narrative about the people. So that's what I'm doing. I'm kind of basically letting everybody know this is a false narrative here, you know? What's happening is you are, you have hijacked a country from another group of people, and in doing so, you have changed the real facts. Captain John Smith couldn't bear the fact that he had a knife to Matoaka's throat, and that was the only thing that kept Ohan Sanoka and Opek Chinkano, which is basically her fiance, and her father, because they was attacking the fort. They was ready to kill. They was ready to put the dagger, the last spear chuck. They had won the first initial war. And the whole story that you get if you're in high school is that she threw herself over Captain John Smith's neck because she was so in love with him, and but the reality is that he had a knife to her throat. But he couldn't tell the English that when he got back. He had a knife to her throat, and his father, Ohan Sanoka, just couldn't see his daughter die because he believed the threat that Captain John Smith was going to cut her throat. So what he did, and what her husband-to-be did, Opek Chinkano, is they backed off and they retreated. They just simply told their warriors to stand down. They left the fort because they had already penetrated the fort. They were inside the fort, and they were jacking them up with tomahawks and spears and bow and arrows. They was jacking them up. And they would have been another lost colony because in Virginia, before them, the same people already eliminated the colony. The first same people already had eliminated the first colony. Jamestown was not the first colony, it's the second. They were on the verge of getting eliminated again. And what Captain John Smith did was they found out that she was going to be the mother of the next queen, because we have a matriarch system. In other words, the bloodline is the woman's bloodline, and then the strongest, smartest man marries her, and he becomes king. That's how our system works. So what happened was the brothers married the wrong sister. Two men that betrayed our people married the wrong sister. And Ohan Sanoka and his wife chose Matoaka. They were jealous. And when the English people came, they saw an opportunity to basically change that and make his wife the Matoaka, to make her the person who was supposed to be the one who, produced the next kings. And of course, the man, he would get to be the king. He would be dominating, making a lot of he'd be the boss, he'd be the West Warrens. So the English just gave him like pots and pans of silver and some ingots and gold and silver to put on. They had never seen this stuff before. They was amazed. And they said, okay, here she is. And they gave her over to the Jamestown, to Captain John Smith. They just gave it to her. And they told her that Ohan Sanoka would never attack your fort as long as she's there. But they attacked anyway. And her fiance, Opek Chinkano, he attacked also. But when they got there, both of them, they could not fathom. They believed Captain John Smith would literally cut her throat. So in that, what happened with them was they retreated. And that was basically their time. That was the last time they was going to have to win. That was going to be the very last time they was going to have to basically kick the English out. And since they didn't take that opportunity, what happened was they could never, the English learned. They got a chance to learn. They had guns, they had cannons, they had swords, they had breastplates, they had metal helmets, they had all kinds of military strategies and skills. And so they already the natives have already beat them just fighting, man to man kind of stuff, Okay, how's it going? 6 goddess, what's up? Another goddess. Good gracious, I got like 4 goddesses in here. Golly. Good to see you guys. I'm so glad y'all can be here. So that's the next painting that's coming up. That's the next painting. That's gonna be right in the middle of the battle, at the very point where Captain John Smith puts the knife up to Matoaka's throat, and Opanchanoka, who's in his prime at this moment, he's in his young 20s, because what you don't realize is that Matoaka was only 11 years old when she was abducted. She was 11. She was really a child. She wasn't even a teenager. She died when she was 16. Don't believe what the stuff that they put in the book. She was not 30-something, 32 when she died. That's bullcrap. She was 11. She died when she was 16. If you go look at somebody else's history who's telling the truth, this person is a white historian, they will tell you that, because the records state that she had not yet reached puberty even when, and she was already the queen. She was already highly respected in the village amongst her people. So they knew who she was, and that's why they needed to abduct her. That's why they needed to get her, because they knew that she was extremely important for them to control her. Because if you control her, you can absolutely control the king. And that's exactly what happened, because he did not want to see her, of all people, he did not want to see her die. That's what it was. He didn't want to see her die. So that's what this next painting is going to be about. It's going to be about Matoaka, held by Captain John Smith at knife point, as they were doing the siege of the fort at Jamestown. At that time, it was only one fort. And that was the perfect time to siege, because they only had one fort. And they literally, if they would have won that attack, which they were on the verge of winning, there wouldn't be perhaps even a United States. There wouldn't be one. There just wouldn't be. It would still be Tsenicamoka. And they wouldn't have changed the name to Mattapanai. It would have been Tsenicamoka. So, that's just how things go. That's how the victor writes the story. And of course, when you see, when the average person, you could be sitting in Belgium somewhere or Cameroon, and you see or in Zimbabwe or wherever you happen to live, and you see the story of Matoaka, and you realize, or Pocahontas, they even changed their name to Pocahontas, and I always tell people, Poca means little in Spanish, poquito, Poca, in Latin, and Hantis means wanted woman, or B-I-C-T-H, or whore in Greek. So what Native American was calling themselves even knew Greek. So even the name that Disney used, they didn't even use her real name. They used the name Pocahontas as the title of the film and references in the film. So they're calling her a little whore. That's what Disney did. I live in the county of Henrico, and the seal that everybody puts on their car for their taxes that they pay on their automobiles, on their personal property, has an image of Matoaka on it, but it's called Pocahontas. It just has a stereotypical Native American kind of looking girl. She's got a little bit of melanation to her. She's not black. She's not white either, but she's kind of like this shade in the middle, a little orange to her complexion. So that's Native American. That's the symbol. And and the Virginia natives were brown people. Just to let you know, they were melanated. Now, what happened was a lot of them were brown because they were outside quite a bit, but they actually had the ability to get very dark if they were outside. If they weren't inside, they still looked very brown. Kind of like some Mexicans look, but darker, even darker than that. If you go to Brazil, the Native Americans are very brown, even today. These people have never even seen Western society before. I mean, they're still living the way they lived 10, 20,000 years ago. You can see exactly they have different features altogether. They look slightly Asian. They look slightly African, but they have like a straight texture of hair. Some of them don't. Some of them have a kind of a little bit of a curl kind of pattern to their hair, you know? So, and that's what the East Coast natives are kin to those natives. See, the natives that was on the islands, the natives on the East Coast, all the way down to Florida, were basically the same ethnic group. There is, and the natives know this, there was at least 3 different ethnic groups of natives. Some look more kind of Caucasian looking. Some look like they were kind of like from Mongolia, or they would look Asian looking. And some kind of look a little bit more like African looking features with the nose and the features. And the body types also. But they didn't quite exactly look African, you know? And I was just talking to a young lady. She said she was Choctaw. She actually does look like some Choctaws I met. And so, you know, some of these groups, you know, because what they had was the Trail of Tears. And in the Trail of Tears, what happened was, after this war, which I call the War of 1644, actually you can Google it, it's on Wikipedia. The War of 1644 in Virginia. Basically, the Native Americans lost that, and it was treacherous. Opec Chinkano was still alive; he was still fighting them, even though at this point he would lose a couple of battles, and it was really no loss because they still had the most territory. You know, the colony people had to stay inside the fort. They weren't able to just walk around, you know, just free. During the time of Opec Chinkano, they weren't. Because they would get hunted down by Opec Chinkano and his warriors, and most likely they was going to get jacked. They was going to get killed. Because they didn't really play like that. They would get closer to the Zulus than anything else. And so it was necessary for them to actually kill Opec Chinkano, because he was the only one of the natives that was really willing to kill, because he was the actual king. The others was kind of bargaining. And what happened was they got Christianized. What the colonials did was Christianize them. And then upon Christianizing them, they convinced them to betray Opec Chinkano. And they did. And they offered them, you know, the kind of stuff they usually offer people to betray their people. And which is, you know, some of the stuff they own, you know. And they took them up on it. They took that stuff. And the rest is history. What happened was they learned English. So they became the first translators. And they was translating between Opec Chinkano's people. And they were really showing them all the trails, all the Native American trails that they used to travel by, the waterways. They were giving them all the logistics that they needed to conquer them. Whether they had knowledge that they were going to get conquered this way or not, but they were giving them all this. And the Queen of England knows this. And, you know, that's why I have a picture on my albums where there is the governor there, and the Queen, she goes to speak to the Mattapanat Reservoirs, the current one. And they still, the part of the treaty when they lost the war, because basically what they did was they told Opec Chinkano, basically what they did was they say, the brother went to Opec Chinkano and said, look, we've been fighting for since 1607 when these people first got here. And our people have been getting killed and their people have been getting killed. And they want to put a stop to it. They want it deceased. And let's meet at the place called Powhite. That's how they got named Powhatan. And powwow means to gathering place. So wow means, pow means to gather. Wow means place. Powhite means holy. So holy place. Let's meet at the holy place. It's basically land that they could not change from the way the Great Spirit made it. The Great Spirit they call Mashe Manuto. That's the name for God, for the local, for Matoaka's people. That was the name. Meshe Manuto. It's kind of like for the Yoruba tradition, Oludamare. Same thing. The Supreme Spirit, the Great Spirit. So the way Meshe Manuto made it, man can't go in there and kill anything, change anything, disturb anything. When you're there, you have to respect Meshe Manuto, or else. They were very serious about that. So what this traitor half-brother did was, he explained this to the colonizers. He explained to them that they won't fight you as long as they're in Powhite. And that's basically the Bon Air area of Richmond. That's Powhite, the Bon Air area of Richmond, Virginia. And Captain John Smith devised a plan that, yes, let's meet there. And his plan was never to discuss peace. His plan was, once they got there, we were going to give them alcohol and get them drunk, because we had already been giving them alcohol, because Native Americans had never had alcohol before. They gave them this new stuff that made them feel kind of funny. And, to kind of try to make some, to try to make them stupid. And for a minute, it worked, it was working. They conquered a lot of stuff by giving them shiny things and alcohol. So isn't that the case today? I mean, we have drugs in the neighborhoods. We have all kinds of illicit things going on. Narcotics. It seems like to me, narcotics is always around when somebody's conquering you, when there is some type of group of people and there needs to be some white supremacy installed. Amongst that group of people, they get some of them to sell alcohol to them, or narcotics, or whatever. They get some of them to sell drugs to the very people. These are regular people. These are not, and so what they did was they got the natives drunk, because they said, okay, we can't fight here. Nobody's going to fight. They had never seen war in the Bon area, in the Powhite area. They had never seen any other tribe do this. So it wasn't something they could fathom. They couldn't even fathom the fact that what Captain John Smith was going to do was, he said, as soon as they get drunk, as soon as we get them good and drunk, what we're going to do is we're going to open fire on them with our long guns. That's exactly what he did. As soon as they got there at Powhite, and they were in fear of Apep Chankano. He was like Shaka Zulu, He was the guy. He was the one. And they were in fear of him. And they did not want him to live, because they knew that as long as he's alive, we can kill a lot of the warriors, but he's going to just train some, get some others going. He's just going to go to another region and get some more people from his tribe. He's coming back. He's going to always come back, because he is the Hathor. He is the king. They're always going to do what he says. So they know they had to take him out. So they said, as soon as we get a clear shot on him, we're going to take him. So since it was his brother, that was the perfect scheme. They used his brother, half-brother. So since it was somebody he knew, it was a native person, and since they were actually going by the natives' rules, Apep Chankano believed his brother. At the time, he had it's kind of almost like the Macbeth story, He had no reason to believe that his brother would betray him. He was the king. Literally, he was the king. Oh, he wasn't the king, he was the prince, but Owan Sanoka, Matoaka's father, was already about 75 years old. He was an old guy. Now, the natives stayed in good shape. I mean, at 75 for the natives then, it was still a very strong, capable person who could do some war. Because it was said, even in the white people's journals, that for a person of 70-some years of age, he had a very nice physique on him. He was a very powerful-looking person still. He was a tall person. So was Apep Chankano. They were not little guys. They were not short men. They were tall. They were over 6 foot something or another. Even my grandfather, so over 6, it's like 6'2" or 6'3". So that's kind of like the trait of the warrior groups, in that group. And I know little guys. They the guys that are going to take that tomahawk to that head, man. But anyway, make a long story short, make a long story keep going, is once they got into range of the long rifles, and once these guys start participating in the alcohol, the English gathered in a formation. The natives didn't think anything was going to happen because they didn't think there was anything. They still had their longbows, and they had their spears, and they had their tomahawks. So they weren't like without their weapons. But the leaders were supposed to be discussing peace. Captain John Smith, actually at the time of the War of 1644, Captain John Smith had gone back to England. It was a person who took his place, because what happened to Captain John Smith is that he was loading a musket and had a misfire, and the gunpowder kind of hurt him pretty bad. He got hurt. He had a misfire with his musket, and the gunpowder kind of backfired on him, or something happened. The shot got him a little bit, and he needed some medical attention, so he had to go back to England. So he had a replacement. England had sent a replacement for him. And this replacement governor, they were all mercenaries, but this particular guy was more brutal. Captain John Smith would at least try to negotiate. They was fighting, but Captain John Smith was the one who held the knife to Matoaka's throat in that first battle, in the first war. But in this last war of 1644, which the English won, was not based on fighting at all. It was based on treachery. It was based on the half-brother betraying his other brother. And what was going to happen was the English was going to observe this other brother as the Wazawarks, and not Apep and Khnum. So they were going to get position out of it. They were going to get status. They were going to get status from basically from the English. The English had power. They had new products coming in that they had never seen before, that they were trading with the Native Americans. And a lot of the little sub-tribes. Now, the Tsenicamoka was not just one tribe called Tsenicamoka. They were multiple tribes based on a chieftain, of that tribe, based on a patriarch, So basically you had the main Wazawarks was the overall leader. He was the supreme leader. He was the king. And then other people, I don't know what their title names were. I don't know what the actual official name for their titles were, because that got dismantled. When it got dismantled way back in 1644. And some of those words that they had to describe those people went away. There was only a Wazawarks, and there was only 2 tribes that survived that war. All of the other tribes were either murdered, genocided, or had to go on to the Trail of Tears. Now, what the Trail of Tears was when they shot all these natives, when the Englishmen with their long rifles opened fire and shot these men while they were basically drunk. Some of the natives tried to retaliate and fight back. And they didn't just get shot down. Some of them tried to retaliate and actually fight back, but to no avail, because the masses of them had already been shot, and they had already been they were in an open field. So they were in this open field, and that's where they had the alcohol. They placed the alcohol there to get them into the open field. And once they were in that open field, it was very easy for the English just to take an aim on them and shoot. And that was all she wrote after that. They just basically took an aim and fired upon them. And that was the end of Apep Chicano's warrior group. These were some of his elite warriors. These were his best warriors. And his brother made sure that he had his best warriors there. he made sure that he had his most staunch followers there. So the brother really, really did a nice job. And he was the one that set it up. He was the one that knew how. The colonials did not know how to set it up without that information. Of course, they Christianized them first, him and his wife, and all of his family got Christianized. And then they gave him a whole lot of stuff, privileges that the other natives didn't have. They gave him a lot of respect. In other words, when he was around, he could come around the English and not get killed. I mean, I don't know if that's respect or not, but he could not get killed. And then not only could he not get killed, he could go and trade animal furs and things like that for shiny pots and pans and silver and gold and ingots and trinkets and pearls and rubies and whatever. Whatever the English decided they wanted, whatever they thought they wanted, including maybe perhaps, I don't even know if they gave him any long rifles. I don't think they did. I don't think they trusted him to have those things, but they would give him at least the ingots and trinkets. And and that's how they got this, the British got this land. That's exactly how it happened. That was the first tribe that any Englishman had ever encountered in North America. Now we know what the Spanish did with Montezuma. They thought that the Spanish was the god returned to visit them, and only to find out that they weren't gods, but they were just people that was bent on conquest. By then it was too late. There was a few natives that kind of suspected that this wasn't the god, this was somebody bent on conquest, but they weren't listened to. But that's a whole nother region of the world. That's down in Mexico, and that's not United States. That's how the Spanish won. Of course, the British had already had this information that Cortez, I mean, all of the places that they had already conquered in South America and Central America, they had that information. The Europeans were sharing that with each other. So what happened was, so they knew exactly what they were going to do with Pocahontas. They knew exactly what they were going to do with Opec Chancano and Ohansanoka. They knew exactly what they were doing. They went there with arms. When they got off the ship, they had spears, swords, guns, cannons, everything. They didn't get off the ship wanting to trade and looking for a trade route they already knew there wasn't no trade route. They had already discovered what the real India was. What they were looking to do was just simply to conquer, to get some land for England and find some gold on it and get rich. That's the whole thing. So these people were speculators. They were military people, mercenaries basically, hired military by hired private people. Sir Francis Bacon, the very same person who wrote the Bible, the King James Version. He's one of the people responsible for all that stuff with the King James Version of the Bible that so many of us love. He was the one who paid the money for these mercenaries to come to Virginia in the first place to take over the United States. The very same people that all you people who love the King James Version Bible so much, he's the one who's the number one person who came here, never with the intent to share anything with any native that they encountered, never with that intent at all. The only intent they actually had was to come in and take. That was the only intention. There was no other intention. Anybody who says anything else is lying. There was no other intention. The only intention there was to come here and take the land. That was it. The English's plan was very straightforward. They weren't explorers. Everything had already been explored. They were conquerors. They were invaders. Why are you going to call them explorers? Not the English. They came to get America. They were not explorers. They already knew there's more land to get. Let's find it. Let's put a flag, plant a flag somewhere, and claim it for England. That's basically the gist of it. It was no more of a deeper plan than that. It was very simple. Let's set up a fort over there in the New World somewhere. They call it the New World. What they really meant when they said New World was not a new world, it meant some more space for us. It's a new place for us to conquer, where there's easy. They didn't even see the natives as a problem. So that's why they called it the New World. They didn't, at the New World, we can go over there to the New World. They didn't even see the Native Americans as an issue. They knew that they were fairly primitive compared to them in terms of military power. There was no comparison. But what the natives had was they had determination, willpower, and the woodland natives, my particular natives, had the forest. And what they did with the forest, they were particularly, matter of fact, what we call now guerrilla warfare was actually the warfare that my particular natives introduced to the English. The English would just sit on a field, with their red coats on, or whatever they had, and the other group of people would be on the field right across the hill, on the other hill somewhere, and they would just have some telescope or binoculars or something, seeing what kind of formations they was putting up. And they would just simply march toward each other and shoot the heck out of each other. That was it. I mean, there was no guerrilla warfare. What we call today guerrilla warfare was the way the Native Americans fought. They used the camouflage, what we call stealth. That's why they have the tomahawk missiles. Tomahawk is a Aquarian language word. In other words, the language of the Tsitsi-Kamoka, the language of the Mattapanai, my people's language. Tomahawk. You see ak at the end of the words. That's us. Danny Brown, what's up? Anytime you see or huck or ek at the end of a word, for example, my middle name is Arotek. My parents live in a city called Mango Heck. Mango. And then the English would say hick. They would say hick. They would spell it like hick, but it's Mango Heck. That's tomahawk. What was the last name of the king? His name was Ohansanoka. Like a ok on the end. Ohansanoka. So you can hear the word of tomahawk. You can hear that sound at the end of even Ohansanoka's name, the same sound as in the word tomahawk. The word canoe is the Tsitsi-Kamoka's name. A lot of words that we refer to as Native American words was given to the English by the first natives that they met. That's the Tsitsi-Kamoka. So therefore, words like canoe, words like tomahawk, and what's some other words? It's a lot of words. They basically stole from us. I think even they just hijacked the words because it was the words that every Native American used. So we just have like a ton of words today. But the reason they have tomahawk is they're stealth missiles. So that's guerrilla warfare. And basically we would camouflage with the foliage. We would camouflage with the foliage so much we could be sitting right beside the person, smelling them, not looking at them, smelling them. So close. And they never knew he was there until that tomahawk went upside that head. And it was over with at that point. And then the rest of them would just run because they would, with the Native Americans, once one went down, there's going to be a whole bunch of other natives come out the woods and just appear from nowhere and just jack everything. And that's basically how they did. They just suddenly appeared, and then they just as fast as they appear, they would disappear and leave a wake of dead people, usually tomahawked in there. So it won't an arrow where you could track the arrow back to a tribe or something like that. Nope, they were tomahawked. And what a tomahawk was either a piece of wood that had been soaked in water or some type of oils and things until it kind of started to get really, really hard and heavy, petrified. Or what it was a rock that was attached to a very hard, strong stick using some type of bamboo that was boiled, and then it would shrink around the rock, and there was grooves cut in the rock, and it would just fit into place. And basically, it wasn't coming apart. And these are the ways you had tomahawks. one was kind of like a club, and the other one was kind of like a rock attached to a club. And basically, one good blow with that to the head, and that's basically how they attack. So they would come out of trees, out of the top of trees. They would drop down on them. That was the number one way they would do it. They would be up high in a tree somewhere. And here is the Englishman down on the ground, running around looking. Then all of a sudden, this guy would just drop down on the head with the tomahawk and then disappear in the forest. And of course, there was canoe somewhere close by, and there was a creek, and they knew the waterways very well, so it was a way for them to get away. There was always a way to escape. They didn't have to escape on foot. Now, the original natives, the English, I don't know how many horses they brought, but there weren't that many horses in North America at this time, in the 1600s. There weren't. Probably every single horse that was in North America was either on the west coast where the Mexicans were, which is far, far away. It's like the other side of Africa, East Africa and West Africa, far away. Or it was just a few horses that was on the ship on Jamestown. That's if they had room for a horse or two. And of course, what those horses had to do was they would have probably a mare and a male horse. And what happened was they would have to make more horses and, reproduce from there. Of course, you start getting inbreeding. So they had, they had planned replacements. But anyway, what happened was the English was basically foraging on foot. And the natives were using canoe and on foot as well. They weren't riding on any particular animal backs or anything like that. And first of all, Matoaka could not speak English at all. Nobody could speak English. So it's impossible to develop a relationship with a group of people. English people don't like to learn other people's languages too much. I don't know if you noticed that. So what they had to do was they had to teach some natives to speak their language. And the natives were smart enough to do that. And then once they could get translating, what happens after that is they get the natives themselves to start asking them questions and learning the culture. And then, of course, what they start doing is inserting their own culture, their own rules into place. And of course, a lot of these rules were foreign to the natives. They just didn't like them. Most of the natives did not like, no, we've never been doing this. You're in our spot now. You have no right to be here because this is our turf, So basically what happened was that was the situation, with the Native Americans. That was the situation because they were on the Native Americans' turf. So, but at the same time, what happened was they wanted to go out and get deer. They wanted to go out and get animals that they can hunt so they can eat. So that's why the starvation. If you study the original Jamestown, they were starving because they were afraid to leave the fort. They could not. The guerrilla warfare was so good of Opechakano and Ohansinoka. The guerrilla warfare was they were so excellent at that that the English, even with their superior firepower, their superior military experience, they were still afraid, and even the ones that did venture out, they almost never came back. So it became, very obvious to them that don't go out the fort. That ain't good. And they found out, and they had to find out who was the person responsible, for, them not being able to leave the fort. Who was the main adversary? And that was Opechakano. And so what they had to do was they had to find so-called, quote-unquote, friendly natives. There was no Thanksgiving. Basically what happened was the so-called friendly natives who were converted to Christianity, and they were given rewards. They were given silver, gold, pots, pans,
They were even given like metal tomahawks or axes. I mean, you can see the advantage of that. You can see how if you're used to stone tools, then all of a sudden this person comes with this metal, shiny metal, that you had basically, in your particular culture, had never seen before. Or maybe you've heard some other natives have this technology, but you didn't. And now finally somebody brings this technology to you. And it was a very, very tempting for them to want to take these little inkets and trinkets. And then, of course, when they start taking them, that's when the wordplay start, they start exchanging language and start learning and teaching them English. That's why the treachery couldn't happen. They came there in 1607. Basically, they got super established in 1612. But it wasn't until 1644 until those little children that grew up in Christianity had gotten old enough to speak English good enough to do all the translating. And that's why, and that's when Matoaka's father, Ohansenoka, was too old. He was almost on the verge of dying. And Opep was on the verge to become the supreme reservoir, not just the prince, but the king. And of course, there would be nobody for him to answer to. He still had to answer to his father-in-law or potential father-in-law. He knew that the father-in-law's family had already said that we intend for you to be with Matoaka, but that couldn't happen because the English had found that information. And of course, these treacherous natives, they knew as long as the English had had Matoaka, there was no way that Opep could claim the reservoir, could claim the kingship. He could not claim the so-called throne. And that was a wigwam, basically a longhouse. And that was the palace. They had a large longhouse where the king lived. And that was the Gloucester County, Virginia. That was the royal, where the royal families, where the bloodline lived, of the Seneca. And of course, they renamed that. I forget exactly what the original name was. They renamed it to Gloucester County because they didn't want to have any claim that could be made that somebody was of the bloodline of Matoaka, or the bloodline of Ohansenoka and his wife, and they not the people that betrayed and joined the colonizers, but the people who basically were the people who still fighting the colonizers. They could make a claim that this actually is my land by birth, by birthright. We've been here since forever. You have the English has no right to this. We weren't defeated. You dealt with us in treachery. You didn't fight us in an honorable way on a battlefield. You deceived us for peace. You couldn't defeat us. So what you did is you ensued peace. And then when we thought we was going to go negotiate peace, you simply blew our leaders away. That's where the word forked tongue is called also mabola. Basically, it's snake. It's called snake mouth. That's another way to say it. Person who says two things at the same time, or says one thing, does something else, or means something different. That comes from my people too, that idea of the forked tongue. Basically, because that's exactly how they got this country. Through lies and deceit. Mabola. And, and if you were a warrior, you were called Megichi. That's the Golden Eagle clan. Warrior clan. Those clans had to go on a Trail of Tears to Megichi. They went for Oklahoma. They went for other places, Eastern or Western Virginia, Tennessee, wherever they could go and join up with another tribe. They'll basically take them in, because they were What happened was, after they had blown away the senior warriors, the best warriors, and what they did was, I think they wounded Opechancanough. He was so tough they couldn't even just shoot him almost at point blank. He was still alive. He was still giving fight. And they shot him with a long gun. Basically, it's like a shotgun, almost point blank. Cat was still alive. So what they had to do was give him a quick trial. You know, and basically get some of his native people around so they can see it. They didn't just let him die on his own, because I think he was going to die from his wounds on his own. They didn't let that happen. What they did was, he was not able to give the full battle that he used to be able to do, so they were able to capture him. Then, just like they did with Nat Turner, Gabriel Proctor, who basically right here in the county that I live in, he actually planned the most successful slave rebellion right here in the state of Virginia. A lot of the best slave rebellions happened right here in the state of Virginia. Nat Turner was from Virginia. I think like Surrey County, somewhere like that. And Gabriel Proctor, I know him because he's from down the road. Literally, I can get on my bicycle or walk to where he lived. And he was a blacksmith. But that's a whole different place and time. However, there's a lot of treachery involved in the history of the United States. Most of it was not all this stuff where some guy was really good at war and stuff like that. Most of it, that's the romantic stuff that people want you to think. Most of it is based on somebody writing a piece of paper or making a negotiation with somebody based on treachery and lies. Most of it was that. It was not on the battle. The original Native Americans, which is the Seneca was not defeated on the battlefield. Matter of fact, when they actually fought a straight up war, even though one side had long guns and cannons and the other side didn't, almost every time the Native Americans will win. Eventually, they might have lost a couple of battles where the English had a ambush set up or something like that, or they had the superior ground, and the natives didn't want to give up. They might have lost a couple of battles where the natives took a little bit of an extra blow because they just refused to quit. Stubborn. And but they never actually won a battle. And they only won the treachery. They won this country through treacherous deeds. And everybody knows that. That's why the word forked tongue, or mabola, especially if you were the warrior class, basically you're saying, I remember the snake. That's what mabola means. I remember the snake. Doesn't mean that you are a snake. It remembers, I remember the snake, and don't ever forget it. Shadi, what's up? Ihuma. How you doing, Shadi Ihuma? So that's actually how the English won the first colony. They tricked the native people in a place called Powhite, which was against their religion to kill anything. As long as they was in that space, it had to be the way that the supreme being wanted, designed it. You couldn't kill an animal. You couldn't even kill a little bug or insect. You couldn't break a twig with your feet. If you walked there, you had to take your shoes off and be very careful. Because if you broke a twig, that was basically a bad thing. That was just almost like a sin, That was just not something that that they did. So usually the only people went there was actually priests and kings. And they usually went there when they needed to seek the face of Matoaka for guidance. And that's what this whole thing was about. The whole thing of going to Powhite was about seeking guidance. Here we have these invaders in our land who are killing our people on sight, because that's basically what their policy. Their policy was, that's why the Native Americans fought them, because they wouldn't even talk to them. They would just see a Native American and kill them. if they had you in open sight of their rifles, they would just open fire and just kill you. That basically that was it. That was the policy. So the Native Americans had no choice. But now, if you had a certain patch on, and a lot of them had certain armbands, when you see Native Americans wearing armbands, that might not necessarily be a good thing. I know you see pictures of it, and I think people see that, and they got confused, especially if it's East Coast. Now, I don't know about the plains and all of that, because they wore armbands. But there was a particular type of armband that you needed to wear after the War of 1644. And if you wore that particular armband, they knew that you were one of the good natives, that they weren't supposed to kill you. They weren't supposed to. They could still kill you. Nothing would happen, but they weren't supposed to kill you. And they would basically let you go. And they weren't necessarily nice to you, but they would basically not kill you, because you were the ones that they made the treaty with. And what the treaty said was that on every Thanksgiving, yes, that's Thanksgiving. That's what the treaty says. That's why a lot of Native Americans, especially East Coast, I don't know. I don't think any of them don't like Thanksgiving, because what you're supposed to do is bring them a deer. You paying retribution for the people that died, and the white people who died, not for your people who died, and for them not to kill you. You're basically paying for them not to come in and just wipe you out. That's basically what you're doing. And if you don't do that, then the treaty is nullified, and they can got you go in and just wipe your little village out. They had the rights. And guess what? When people didn't pay when they didn't go to the governor with their turkey and with their deer meat and with their corn and all of the various crops, the Native American, yes, corn is a Native American crop. It wasn't a European crop. There was other crops other than corn. Tobacco, basically, English made so much money off of tobacco. Talked to them by, guess who? Native Americans. So they didn't find gold here. They found tobacco. And you know the rest is history. How many of you guys out there smoking today? Well, that's based on conquest. Cigarette industry itself is based on conquest. It's set up by these very same people who some of us claim we don't even, they're deceiving people, the Illuminati, whoever. But yet that person sits there with a cigarette just puffing and puffing all day long. Well, that's Philip Morris, man. That's a couple of cigarettes. It's only one big cigarette company. It's just the same slave master. And you just give them the money, man. They're all over the world collecting them. And this is what they got out of enslaved people and genocide. They got the right to take the resources that was here, in this case, a crop of the Native American tobacco, export it to the whole world, and just make money, make money, make money. So what is the root of all evil? Money. These were merchants. These weren't just kings. We always focus on, yes, Queen Elizabeth, she's the one who sanctioned a lot of stuff, or her family members did. But these were merchants who pitched them, who basically gave them the idea. They didn't have any idea that you could go over there and make money by exploiting natives. There was people who was going over there and they said, look, there's natives in Africa, natives in India, natives in Americas. All of them we're superior in military with. We can take all their crap and ain't nothing they can do about it. That's basically what they told their king. But we need your support. And for a lot of times, to tell you the truth, the kings and queens of Europe didn't want to do that for a little while until they start smelling that gold. And that's why they brought them big shipments to them. They said, look, we got to get the establishment behind us. We got to get the kings. We got to get these people in agreement. We got to get all of Europe in agreement of us exploiting all these indigenous people all over the world. If we don't get them behind us, then the indigenous people, they're kings and queens too. They will go and say, look, you're trying to govern your people, we're trying to govern our people, and you got some of your subjects coming over here wreaking havoc in our provinces. And then the king would say, hey, look, I can sympathize to the guy. So what they had to do was convince the king and queen first. You know what? Forget that, because we know that all y'all kind of like it's the same, different cultures, but it's a similar breed of people. Kings and queens, no matter where they are, they think the same way. They think the same way. So they had to convince the kings and queens of Europe to want this, whatever they was making money. They had to make greed the number one thing. They had to make that the number one. Oh, somebody else waving. What's up? How's it going? Kevin King. King is here. What's up, my brother? They had to make that the number one thing. That was super important to do that, because without that, they wouldn't be able to stake a claim and stay in those places. They wouldn't have been able to stay. Then they had to convince some kings, and that's why I know that some of those kings, even in Africa, had to be in agreement with slavery. The reason why is because, again, these kings were in agreement with each other. The one king says, okay, well, as long as you pay this tribute to me, you can take whatever you need here. We'll look the other way. Yeah, I believe that happened. And I know some people say, well, no, none of the Africans didn't sell the other Africans. I don't know about that. Because right now, I just saw some footage the other day on the internet where some people went to South Africa, I believe it is, and other Africans, jacked them to bump up. Then tried to blame some other foreigners for it. That's the funny part about it. And it was real clear that they were the guilty party, but some reason they actually believed that somebody else would believe that they were innocent, man. And there was other Africans. They were more mad with another African tribe than they were with the actual people who's actually exploiting them. Which I thought, I just was amazed at that. It's like, man, do you know how much power these other groups have? And you're sitting here fighting just some group of people that's looking for a job. And then there's people with real power. You ain't doing nothing to them. You're just kind of giving them a pass. And you jacking up these little people that all they want to do is work somewhere. You know that there's a million other jobs out there. Why are you fighting over jobs? Jobs can be created and uncreated really, really quickly. So if you think somebody's going to take, it ain't no such a thing as your job. What it is, there's a culture. And the culture produces work for its people. You say, okay, this is something that grows in our land, tobacco. Okay, so we're going to export this to other people who want it. Well, either the foreigner can take your tobacco, or you can take your tobacco. And there's plenty of work for everybody to do whatever they want to do with tobacco. But once the superstructure is there, that can happen. But the second you destroy the superstructure and another group of people control that, you ain't got no job. Your job is based on the people who control it, what they say. And I guarantee you, those people are going to select them as the controllers of that. They're not going to select your people or you. They're going to be the controllers. You're never going to be a manager. You're only going to be a slave. An employee is a slave. So you're stopping slaves from coming into your country to do work for your country. See? So you don't really have an idea of societal structure. That's not your education. Clearly ain't in that area because there's a lot of ignorance there. So why are you killing somebody who is just coming for work? I mean, are you going to solve your nation's problems doing that? Heck no. Well, it feels kind of bad because I'm at the job and these people snobbing me. Yeah, you're into your emotions. It feels bad. But what is bad, though? I mean, what is actually going on that's bad? You have a system that's a European system where all your goods is traded with foreigners. Be it a Chinese foreigner or a European foreigner. All your stuff, the people who control the whole trade is foreign. What you should be doing is you should be talking to your kings and leaders and saying, look, your own people, not the foreign other Africans, and saying, look, we need to be in charge. of our resource. We need our own people, and you're making bad decisions. You're putting foreign people in charge. You got to have that conversation with your leaders. And if the leader decides, well, I don't want to listen to you, I'm going to kill you, then you got to address that. Because that's basically what happened to cause the slave trade in the Americas. I'm sure that somebody said, hey, we shouldn't be selling our people like this. Somebody said, the heck I'm making money off of this. Bump you. Let the English do whatever the heck they want. Let the Portuguese. Matter of fact, I'm going to send some soldiers out to help them. When we see a lot of those guys with guns, those are the guys that's underneath the authority. I don't know if that's English authority or not. Those guys with the guns leading the other Africans to the place, the holding place, where they're going to get on the slave ships next. There was African people doing that. You can call them a Moor, you can call them whatever you want. But basically what you have some Fulanis who see themselves one way. Then you have some Igbos that see themselves another way. You got some Hausas that see themselves a different way. You got some Yorubas that see themselves another way. Whatever the tribe. You name it. ABC tribe, you pick it. And one group said, well, you know what? Let's get some houses, because guess what? I know people that got Fulani DNA in them. I know people that got Hausa DNA in them. Go right back to the tribe. I got Mali, as well as Yoruba. I mean, everything. So they were doing it to each other. Tribalism. Anyway, that's what happened to the Mattapanai. It was tribalism. But this was intertribalism, where there was a schism in the family, in the royal family. And the English just simply exploited that. They exploited it. And they took advantage of it. And that's why they celebrate Pocahontas today. Because Pocahontas stopped Opec from destroying Jamestown. Literally. And it wasn't because she wanted to. I mean, they make it look like that's what she wanted. You remember, she was only 11 years old. I doubt if she even knew the significance of how important she was. I think the people who knew the significance was Captain John Smith, Opec, who was a little bit older. She was probably 11. He was probably already 18, 19, 20. So he was already very developed. All he really wanted was to marry into that bloodline and become the king. That's what he wanted. He already knew he was the best warrior. He already knew he was the baddest, the smartest of them. Like I say, and then when they actually shot him, in that treachery, dude didn't even die, man. And they had to basically execute him. That's what they did in front of his people. They did basically a Nat Turner on him. So the Nat Turner thing wasn't a new thing. They took him in front of his people because he was a proud king, proud man. And the people basically thought that he couldn't die, man. He was, he was blessed. He was Medici, mystic Medici at that. He couldn't be killed. And guess what? When they shot him, he didn't die. So it was very necessary even not to let him live, because he was using his Medici stuff. He did not die when they shot him point blank, basically with a shotgun. I mean, who survives that? This guy did. So they executed him in front of his people, just to prove that in fact he was meant by Moshe Manuto to lead his people. And the sign was they shot him point blank with the fire sticks, and they couldn't kill him. He didn't die. That was probably, that act alone probably was going to get them to break him out, and they was going to come back and fight him again. So they had to execute him, because here it is, this guy has defied their fire sticks, and almost nobody could defy the fire sticks. So Opec is the hero. He is the first Native American hero that defended these lands against the invaders. I don't call them colonizers, I call them invaders. Well, Steve, you live in this country. This is America. Yes, it is. But they still took it the wrong way. They didn't. What they could have done, they could have negotiated with the Native Americans. Say, look, we have an advanced civilization. We have more things. We could actually set up plantations where you would be the benefactor. Well, guess what? They did that with some of the Mattapanai, the ones who intermarried with the whites. They did that. But they didn't do it with all of them. It was a very small minority. And then over time, those people just became white. They just kept marrying other white colonials until they were no longer Native American anymore. So they disappeared. So it really didn't even matter. The ones who stayed kind of separated, of course, what they did was, right after the war, the first thing they did was write a piece of paper. Of course, these people could not read or write English. I don't know if they could read or write anything else, but they could read or write English. That's for sure. So, but he put his mark on this piece of paper to basically say, all of Central Virginia belongs to the colonial, and everything around the Chesapeake Bay belongs to the colonial, and none of that belongs to the Kamoka anymore. As a matter of fact, your name ain't even to the Kamoka anymore. Your name is Powhatan. Because we're going to commemorate where we defeated you, where we destroyed you. We want you to remember who you are, a destroyed people, and where you lost all your best warriors who defended you. Your Heru was lost at Powhatan. That's where he was defeated, and your best warriors. And that's where they executed him at. Now, you weren't supposed to kill there. So he definitely did not want to die there. They did not want, I don't even know if they actually killed him right there at Powhatan or somewhere near it or brought the people there, but they had to have enough Native American witnesses. So I'm pretty sure it was probably there just to add insult to injury, to let these people know that whatever you believe in, it ain't helping you. And that's why they still call this area. We have a highway that goes through Richmond right now called Powhatan. And this was named like in the 1970s. After the fact. And say, okay, they were actually called the Powhatans. They weren't called no Powhatans. There was a region called Powhatan. And again, it was called Powhatan because that was the holy place. It was a respected place. It's kind of like, what is a respected place? It's kind of like if you go to the tomb of an unknown soldier, in the United States, or some sacred place that we hold sacred, or, some place in Washington, D.C. where a lot of soldiers, they have death. We honor death. They honored life, where only nature prevailed. They didn't have a place where there was holy that, or considered holy grounds that had dead people in it. They had places that were considered holy grounds that only had life there. It's completely opposite of the English tradition, because the places was holy ground in the English tradition was somewhere where somebody is killed, where they planted a person, a human being in the ground, and now all of a sudden, because a dead person is there, it's holy. Really? Is that the definition of that? So Mashe Manuto basically is the name of the supreme god of the original Native Americans. Lucia Roberts, what's up? Lucius, Maxim McPherson, what's up, my brothers? Good to see some strong, tough brothers up in here. I'm the artist brother. I don't know if I'm the tough one, but I sure as heck know my own history, and I know a lot of history. And I know that, but and I make it a point to know that stuff. But I'm just sharing the stuff that they don't teach you. And I went actually to my local high school in my area. Asked the white teacher there. I said, look, why do y'all teach? Because I had a family member that was at that school. And I said, why are you teaching American history, especially Virginia history? This history happened right here. And my relative is the person what you're talking about. We know what the history is. You're teaching a false history, and I found out that our government approves the curriculum. He told me, actually, in college, we did learn this, with exactly everything you're saying. I said, so you know then? He says, yes, we know. But I can't teach anything other than what is dictated by the Department of Education. Our curriculum comes to us from the federal government level. And I said, well, you still can't teach the truth? I mean, ain't nobody in these classes, but somebody could report us, and we'll get in trouble. Likewise, he was teaching Greek history. And I said, well, did you know anything about Kemet? And in fact, that this person and that person actually learned a lot of the stuff that you was teaching to one of my relatives. You know, you taught that. Do you even teach that there was a place called, forget about Kemet, was there a place called Egypt that predates Greece? No. And I said, well, why not? Because the government does not allow us to teach that way. But when you were in college, you did learn the right way. Yes. And so you do know what I'm saying is the truth. Yes. But yet you teach the kids a false narrative. Yes. Of course, he was white. Now, he had an assistant teacher who was like a dark chocolate dude with a bald head and a beard and mustache. But that dude just sitting there looking at me one time. I said, oh, man, this guy ain't saying nothing. I was thinking the brother was going to come up, man, and do one of them. Probably ain't do nothing but sit there. He said, yeah, that's my friend. We meet after work and hang out. I said, but yeah, you might be friends with the brother, and I said, bro, man, come on. This is our history. This is what happens. And you ain't, and these are some black people in this class. You mean to tell me, and they won't teaching about who's the guy? Orlando Nino, who actually was the actual person who led Columbus's ship to Jamaica. Oh no, this guy ain't had no clue. He didn't even learn that in school. He went to the white folks' school, man. He didn't go to no Howard or nowhere like that. He's up at the white folks' school, and he ain't even know that, but the white guy knew. That was the funny thing. And I said, hold on, man, this is about somebody coming over and discovering Jamaica, which is right now African country, run by African people. And there are a group of people called the Maroons in Jamaica, who, and the reason they're called the Maroons because Christopher Columbus marooned them. He literally sank their ships. I mean, they led Christopher Columbus to Jamaica. Christopher Columbus never discovered America, what we call the USA today. He was in Jamaica. He discovered Jamaica. He never ever set one foot in North America. And I said, so I guess we're not going to teach that either, even though I know it's probably some Jamaican Americans up in here. And I wonder if their parents are interested for their kids to know what happened with Christopher Columbus, the truth. Because you're teaching Christopher Columbus, that interfaces directly with their country, and you want to teach the truth, right? There was no comment there. And of course, homeboy just sitting there looking at me, man. He just looking up in my face. It's like, why are you in here stirring up trouble, you know? And I'm like, oh my gosh, man, it's just, we can't get nowhere here. And of course, I was the one, of course, I'm at the PTA, I'm at the main meeting. I get up in front of the daggone microphone. Now, I ain't got this headband on, but I might have had some junk on, you know. Because when I talk about Native, I wear, you know, I do whatever I want. But anyway, some know exactly what happened. Because this stuff is actually, real archaeologists did go in. I would even say European or white archaeologists. Because what they did when they made the movie Pocahontas, they found out the real story. Hollywood found out the real story. Because they hired actually real archaeologists to come in and give them the information. Tell them exactly, we want to know how we can make a good story about Pocahontas. Because the story they were told in high school, even the people, the producers at Hollywood was told this This lame story. And the directors and all those people. And then when they actually start doing real research to try to pull up some more information to flesh out a real nice story, they found the truth. They actually found the truth. And what happened was they didn't want to make a movie about that. So what they instead opted to do is tell the whole world a lie. Rather than to make a movie based on the truth. Because we have a certain president that said, make America great again. And there's some people that say, when was America ever great? When they were deceiving Apep and lying to him, or when they were taking other people's land and not even trying to give them any kind of consolation for their own land, or make an agreement. Look, we're going to start a tobacco plantation and we want to have some rights to the land, and what we want to do is this, that, and the other. Of course, the Native Americans didn't understand that, so are you going to wait until a generation comes in where they can start to understand that you can purchase land and one person controls that land and they can pay taxes on it? They didn't have any idea what that stuff was. And if they did sign anything, they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know what a contract was. You basically, like I say, the opposite of Ebola, well, I don't know that word, but is they didn't need one because nobody lied. They didn't even have a word for lie. They had to make a snake with a forked tongue because there was not even a word for lie, because lies was something that just wasn't acceptable. If you said it and you had a witness that that's all you needed was some witnesses that heard you say what you said, you were bound to that. There was no need to sign a piece of paper. Because a piece of paper is for somebody who's going to agree on something and then later backtrack. He's going to lie. It's a treacherous person. That's what a contract is for. It's a person who is known to be a dishonest person. And I shouldn't say there weren't no liars, but there were people who were known to be dishonest. You basically had to stick with your word, even if it meant you died. That was very important. There was a certain honor in that with the Native Americans. But the English didn't have any such thing. They could lie and then come right behind it and say something completely different. And of course, this would just catch the Native Americans completely off guard, because it wasn't in their culture. It just wasn't. It wasn't there to do those kind of things. So they really couldn't understand that. They couldn't understand people who would just do that just naturally. It was just do it like the wind. It was just do it as part of their normal activities. I mean, that's just how they conducted life with each other. So what happened was the natives decided, well, there's no way we can coexist because they have one way of doing things and we have a completely different way. So we can't coexist. So that's where the whole idea with the Virginia natives of reservations. Okay, you cannot live in the cities with us. You used to hunting and fishing, and you used to somebody could walk. The natives will walk on their property, what they thought was their property. And it wasn't so much they was coming to scalp anybody, anything like that. And what the colonials had the right to do, because they didn't understand trespassing, they had the right to kill you for trespassing. So here's a Native American doing what they've always done, was walk on those very same properties before these people even showed up. What they've done for generation after generation after generation. And then here this colonial comes out and say, he's on my property, therefore the rules of the English say I can kill him. They would kill him and then they would go to court and there was no reciprocity. The Native Americans couldn't understand that either. There was a whole lot of new things happening, which just was foreign. It literally was foreign. And I don't think the English had any idea of explaining that to them. I think that was just a good excuse to just get rid of some people that's on stuff that you don't want them to be on. That's the land.